The State Performance Index report for 2023 is the second edition of a comprehensive assessment of the socio-economic performance of Nigerian states. This report combines objective data from credible, publicly available sources with subjective data derived from surveys of residents and indigents of each state. The aim is to provide an in-depth analysis of state performance considering their potential and risk exposure. This edition introduces enhanced methodologies, detailed state descriptions, rankings, outlooks, and tailored recommendations for each state. Joining us now on the morning show is Victor Mba, head of the Abuja office of Philip Consulting. Good morning, Victor Mba, and thank you for joining us on the morning show.
Good morning, Ruben, and nice for having me.
Very good. Well, I mean, this State Performance Index prepared by Phillips Consulting starts with a good quote that I like. It says, "The magic of the federation begins in the states," which is okay, because I think oftentimes we tend to focus more on the federal government, whereas the subnationals are also very important. And what happens at the subnational level is important for the well-being of the entire federation. Now, this State Performance Index categorizes states to the top 5 performing states and the bottom 5 states that are not performing well, and then offers us an outlook in terms of states for which the outlook is positive, like Gombe, states for which the outlook is negative, like Benue, and states for which the outlook is stable, like Oyo State. And then, of course, recommendations. Now, this is a report of over 260 pages. If you could just take us through what the general observations are in terms of how you arrived at the top 5 and the bottom 5, and the ones that are either negative or positive or stable. So take us through your methodology and how you arrived at some of those conclusions.
Okay, so thank you very much for having me. I'm glad to be here. So the State Performance Index report, basically the essence of the report is to, look at these states, how they have performed, what they have achieved with the potentials they have from both secondary sources, and also looking at the perspectives from the people that live in the state and those who are from that state. The whole essence is to, forge collaboration between states. It's not a name and shame kind of report, no. Forge collaboration between states, help states to, look at other states where they are performing better and see what they can borrow from those states. So in terms of how we arrived at the ranking, the first thing that we did was to come up with the indicators, 35 of them grouped into performance indicators, those that can be measured using secondary data, and those that can be measured using our surveys. We also came out with weightings for each of these indicators. We put these indicators into those 4 different buckets, like you have seen here from the report. Then we benchmarked each state against the best performing state, multiplied by the ranking, and that came up. That gave us our overall ranking for each of the states. Now, in terms of the outlook, how did we arrive at the outlook? We just looked at these states. What are their what is the potential in these states? What are they doing currently? What are the things that they plan to do? How do we see them in the next 1 year? So those that have performed quite well, have good potentials, and they are currently doing things to enhance their performance, got a positive ranking. And those that are just coasting, are stable. Then those that we've not really seen anything really significant that they are doing, we come up with a negative ranking. But the whole essence is to, help these states to see what they can learn from the other states, and also help the citizens to have like a benchmark or a baseline from which they can measure the performance of the state governments.
Okay. So let's talk about some of these pressure points. The GDP of the states, the gross domestic product of states. What's the idea behind the calculation of that, and what did you see most of the data points on that?
Okay, with respect to the GDP, the last time the GDP in Nigeria was measured was maybe 2-3 years back. So we used that data, and we used that data to look at the states. But that's just one of the indicators among the several indicators that we considered when looking at the socio-economic performance of the states.
So how did you now rank them along GDP? Can you tell me your own data points? What did you discover? What states had higher GDP, and what do you think is attributable to that? What happened as regards that? Could it be access to resource? Just talk me through the data.
Okay. So with respect to GDP, of course, Lagos State had the highest ranking GDP. Lagos State had the highest ranking GDP. Then you look at states like Rivers State, you look like Ogun State. These states had very high level of GDPs, and this translates into, positive performance for each of these states that I have just mentioned. Yeah, so the GDP, among the indicators, the performance indicators, had the highest ranking. In other words, a state that had a high GDP compared to other states that had lower GDPs had higher ranking. What do I mean? You see, among all the indicators, the GDP was the highest weighted indicator. So if you have a high GDP, you have a comparatively higher score than other states that don't have a high GDP. Yes, but like I explained earlier, the whole essence of the report is a very voluminous report as we have it there. So we are encouraging stakeholders to go online, download this report, and look at it, come up with feedback.
Okay. Hello, Victor, are you there? Can you hear me?
Yes,
okay,
I can
very
hear you.
quickly. Now, this
Very well.
report is looking at socio-economic performance. Now, before now, we had the report by the National Bureau of Statistics stating that 28 states in the year 2023 failed to attract any form of capital importation, zero capital importation in terms of investments. And the question that raises is about viability of these states. From some of your conclusions in that report, do you think some of these states are even viable at all? Because, that's one concern. Are they viable? And then secondly, could you take us through what the purpose of the report is? Did you involve the stakeholders at the state level in preparing the reports? Are you selling the report to the various states so that they can take the recommendations on board for their own planning purposes? Or this report will just be made available publicly like that? Yeah. What are the next steps now that you have prepared the report? I know Phillips Consulting, over the years, since 1992, has been preparing, reports. But just tell us about the purpose and the significance.
Okay, so let me start with the first question around viability of the states. From our research, all the states are viable. It all depends on how much the government of the state can harness the potential from the states. There are states that have huge landmass. There are states that have borders with a lot of other states. There are states that have seaports. There are states that have several mineral resources. And the truth is that these states are already doing a lot of things to enhance their performance. You look at a state like Edo State, for example, they have digitized the entire public service so that it is paperless. You look at a state like Kaduna State, for example, they've come up with things like municipal areas like we have in the FCT, so that it is devoid of elections and it can drive development. You look at a state like Ebonyi State, they've come up with concrete roads against the asphalt roads that are relatively more expensive. You look at Lagos State, the Blue Rail, and also recently they came up with their EGIS system where they have digitized the whole land processes from acquisition to documentation and verification. Those are very fantastic things that the states are doing. And we think that other states who are not doing very well can, copy from these states that are doing quite well in these areas. Then the second thing you spoke about was the purpose of the report. Like I mentioned earlier, the first is to encourage collaboration between the states. Then also to give them a baseline for which they can measure performance. This report was first produced in 2018, which had a kind of not a very large, robust methodology. But with this current report, we have integrated both the survey and also data from secondary sources. And the purpose of this report is to advertise the states to investors, expose areas that these states can make improvements, among different other things that the state governments can do with the reports. Then the final one, you said, are we selling this report? Philips Consulting, over the years, we've carried out a lot of surveys, from talent management to aviation to e-commerce, among several other surveys which are freely available on our website for download. So this particular report is free for everybody to look at. And for the next edition, we hope to get better with our methodology. We hope to improve on our number of responses. We hope to get into the states, speak to state-specific initiatives, discuss with the state government, and include more information in the next edition as compared to what we have currently in the present edition.
Well, how do we access the report? Since you say it's free, how do we access it? Is that the
QR code?
Yeah.
Okay,
the
so
QR code is on the screen. So how do we access it? We go there.
Exactly. So you can just scan the barcode, you access the report, or you just go to our website and you will see the report under the Insights section. And we appeal to stakeholders to, go to the website, download this report, give us feedback, because we hope to get better and better with the next edition. We hope to, galvanize support from most stakeholders and also engage directly with the states so that the next report that will come out will have more detailed, specific issues that speak to each state.
Okay. Let's talk about literacy rates and domestic debt and external debt. What did you find out in this report as regards literacy rates in states, domestic and external debt? Most of these states have humongous debts that sometimes you think they don't even... You wonder why did they even get this debt in the first place, based on the infrastructure on ground.
Okay, so let's start with the literacy rate. Of course, literacy rate is something that some states don't take as serious as they should take them, because literacy rate is directly related to development. When you educate people, they contribute to the development. It might not be immediate. It's a long-term investment that contributes to development. In terms of debt in itself is not a bad thing, but the question is, are we borrowing for consumption or we are borrowing for investment? Yes, and the more you are able to attract debt as a state, it shows that you are doing something right for people to even be able to give you this money to spend. So we looked at the domestic and the foreign debt. We matched it with the development in these states and came up with, those are things that, influence the final rating.
Which states rank high in literacy rates? And which states rank high in the debt, both domestic and external?
Okay, we might have to refer to the report, because those are really specific areas that we might have to refer to the report to find out, like just on top of my head. Of course, in terms of literacy rate, you look at Lagos State is high, Anambra State is high, Abia State is high. Of course, the low states are mostly the states in the northeast area, based on the insecurity that have persisted there for a very long time. And this data on literacy was going from the Nigerian Bureau of Statistics. So they are not data that Philips Consulting manufactured. We just pull this data from those sources and use them in our final computation.
Okay. Were the states involved in any way in terms of the preparation of this report? Because what happens usually when you prepare a report like this, and we've seen it also on this program, when the states representatives come on this program and we confront them, even with NBS, National Bureau of Statistics figures, they will say, oh, they don't know where those figures are coming from, and that, you know, they have a different set of data. Are you likely to face that challenge as the states begin to take a look at the various pages of this report? Or the report was prepared with prior consultations with them?
Okay, so we have also envisioned this challenge, and that is why we tried as much as possible to be very objective. All the data sources were quoted. Our methodology was also exposed so that states can look at it and then say, okay, whether they agree or not, these are from verifiable sources like the World Bank, the NBS, the Governors Forum Data Repository, and several other credible data sources. And you know, the purpose of this report is not, like I said before, it's not a name and shame kind of report, no. We prepared it to, you know, drive a positive change within the states. For instance, I'll give you an example. In 2018, when we did the first report, Borno State came out very low because that was the height of the Boko Haram crisis. But look at what has happened now. They've, you know, come up in terms of their ranking. In terms of ranking. And most of this ranking is due to citizens' perception. What do the people think? So there was no particular data that was manufactured by Phillips Consulting. We only pulled data from all of these different sources and our surveys to come up with the ranking. So, well, we expect the states to look at this report from the perspective of, okay, how can we get better? How can we engage more with our people? How can we improve on the different indicators that have been highlighted? Our ease of doing business, our literacy rate, our employment rate. How can we ease insecurity and all of that? Because look, when you look at the report, the states that performed at the bottom, most of them are plagued with insecurity. And following our survey, most of those states at the bottom are states that respondents from that state ranked them quite low. That was what affected their overall ranking. So the states should, instead of being defensive, you know, look at this report and say, okay, how can we improve on this? And like I mentioned, the next edition, we want to engage directly with each state. As a matter of fact, we've sent this report to every state liaison office so that the governors or whoever is responsible for that function would have this report, go through this report, and come back to us with the feedback. Okay. And for the next report, we would evolve and get better.
Okay, so two things. What are some of the areas that you didn't cover in this report that you'll probably like to have in the next report, number one? Number two will be, let's talk about access to potable water, all right? And access also to physical infrastructure and public institutions. How did that go? You know, what states came up top? You know, what state has the least access to potable water in Nigeria, for instance? And, you know, and physical infrastructure and public institutions. And what are some of the parameters that are not covered here that you will want, you know, to be covered here? Because take, for instance, I can tell you one, by the top of my head, states with the best local government administration. You know, I think that's another viable one that we might want to put it, or maybe you couch that other public institutions.
Okay, so let me start from the last point you made. Local government administration. Yes, those are things that we lumped together into the public institutions. Okay. But going forward, like I said, we have taken this feedback from you, and we will try to see how we can, you know, infuse it into the next report. And we want people to give us feedback, just like you have done. We'll look at this local government administration, and we'll see how we can make it more prominent in the next edition of our report. Potable water, like I mentioned, all these specific areas, it's a very large report, so I can't possibly have all this at the back of my head. But what we saw with potable water is that most states today, people rely on having boreholes. There's no, you know, potable water available for everybody. You have to have a borehole to be able to have access to water. And except for places like the FCT, you know, Lagos State in some areas, and a few other states where these things are, you know, available. In terms of public institutions, like I've mentioned before, when we ranked the indicators, our team of experts ranked public institutions as very important because public institutions is what speaks to the sustainability of government. Because government come and go. At most 8 years, the government is gone. A new government comes in. So if the public institutions are not very strong, what you find out is that the executive wields so much power because the civil service, in quotes, is not functional. But we will go to a place like Edo State, like I mentioned in the past. The governor has done something very fantastic. He has digitized the entire public institution. You go to Lagos State, the government have also done very well in terms of that, and several other states. Kaduna State, for example, like I mentioned, the governor did the former governor, Malam Nasir El-Rufai, he created these municipal area councils, just like we have in the FCT. That is to strengthen the public institutions. And, several other states are doing different things to, work on their public institution. In terms of the last one you mentioned is infrastructure, right?
Yes.
If I get it right. Yes. Infrastructure. Okay, yes. In terms of infrastructure, we captured that from our survey because during our research, it is so difficult to get data on infrastructure. So we had to use our surveys, primary data, to capture that information. And like I mentioned, you look at a state like Ebonyi State, what they've been able to do with infrastructure. The asphalt roads are becoming more expensive to construct. The asphalt roads. So they have used concrete roads to ensure that the entire state is connected by concrete roads. And when you look at even the survey from Ebonyi State, the citizens of that state rated that particular component of our data as very high. So they are quite satisfied with the state of the public infrastructure. So we are saying, okay, for the other states who have performed, comparatively lower in this area, what can they, learn from other states that are doing well? So we want to, together with the Governors Forum, the Governors Forum is already doing so much in that regard, trying to foster collaboration between the state government. We want to work with them, especially for the next edition, to see how we can, make this more prominent for states to, work together more, learn from themselves, and, get better in the different areas where they are, where they had some level of low ranking.
Okay, well, 260-something page report, but let's focus on at least one of the states. Take Benue. I stated earlier that in terms of outlook, this report says that the outlook for Benue State is negative. Although in the overall rating, you said fair performance. So why is the outlook for Benue? Why is it negative? Benue State in this same report is described as the food basket of the nation. At a time we are having issues with food inflation, food protests, federal government releasing grains from the National Reserve. If you could just take us through, why the food basket of the nation has a negative outlook and your specific recommendations in this report.
Okay, so for Benue State, for example, in our report, like you have mentioned, they performed fairly. But when you look at the insecurity that have plagued this state for a very long time, insecurity, you look at all those farmers, leaving their farms, running out for shelter. It affected the performance of the state. And during our research, looking at the new additions that have come on board, we've tried to find out whether things have changed or things are changing, only from the responses from our survey. And you find out that people are not yet satisfied with the efforts of the government. Then in terms of our recommendation to the Benue State government, one of the things we suggested was that the government should collaborate with the governors of the neighboring states. Because when you collaborate with the governors of the neighboring states, you improve your security and also enhance trade. So states like Nasarawa State, that is very close to Benue State, states like Plateau State, I think Enugu State, those are states that have borders with Benue State. And Benue State has a lot of borders, bordering states. So all those states that have borders with Benue State, they should collaborate with them and see what they can learn from these states. They should also look at ways where they can strengthen their public institutions. They should also see how they can improve on their domestic trade and performance, how they can leverage on all the bordering states to, sell what they produce from the states, and also, more importantly, how they can engage more constructively with the citizens of the states. Because like I mentioned, what we did was to take out data from secondary sources, and we also did a survey. So when you look at the survey report from Benue State, the citizens of the state have actually ranked it low in the overall assessment of the state. And then Rufai asked me a question earlier as to what we hope to do better next time. One of the things we also want to do better, for each of these states, we want to go into that state and engage with a lot more people, because that will give us more information about these states, and it will help us to be able to make a more informed ranking. For the next report, it will be out by the third or fourth quarter of this year. So we hope to start much earlier, engage with these states more, and see how we can, integrate them into what we are doing, so that they kind of own this document together with Phillips Consulting. In every ranking, somebody must come top and somebody must be at the bottom. In every ranking. It doesn't mean that the guy at the bottom isn't doing well. No. Sometimes it means that, okay, they are all performing well, but the person who is at the bottom compared to the person who is on top did not perform as well.
Okay, so another recommendation I'd like to give you for your next report is if you can do an on-the-ground assessment of the corruption perception index of the state. Maybe you ask people, you have an empirical format for that where you ask people what's their perception of corruption pervasively in the state, and also what's their perception of, viability index in the state, as regards how viable do they think their state might be. Because apart from, the MBS figures, also figures on the ground and people, pretty much talking about it, will go a long way. Also, based on, the political scenery, the viability of, as regards stability, economic stability of the state, because it's also linked to security and all of that, which is also based on the perception of the people. Other areas you guys might want to look at, and also trade in the state, availability of information as regards trade and engagement and things like that, and where people can go, and trust in governance. I mean, these are some other areas you guys could also look at. But my question now will be, I want you to talk a little bit more on that case of security, because it affects agriculture also, and food production of the state. I mean, you talked about Benue, but there are some other states too out there that are having that challenge. Can you just also talk us through those challenges?
Okay, yeah. So security is a very critical issue, and it speaks to every other index, because when there's no security, you cannot construct roads. People are scared to go and build the road. There's no security. People cannot go to school. People cannot farm. Government offices cannot work effectively. People are leaving the states, what we refer to as involuntary migration. So all of these things are directly linked to insecurity. And we are saying for you to even start the process of development, these are fundamental issues that you must address. One of them is insecurity. You see, for instance, a state like Borno State. I refer to the 2018 report where they came out at the bottom. Why? Because that was a point where they were plagued with serious insecurity, and it affected every other thing happening in the state. But today, they are coming out of it gradually. You look at this report, you see the bottom states, for example, you look at, let me just refer to it, you look at Imo, you look at Abia, you look at
Zamfara, Plateau, Nasarawa,
Zamfara. All those states, if you look at those states, those are states that have serious security challenges. And what we are saying is that to solve this problem, I'm not an expert in security issues, but I know that to solve this problem, you have to collaborate, because these people are part of us. You have to educate people. You have to, provide the basic things people need, because some of these insecurity is also linked to poverty. So when people are feeding well, people have good jobs, the neighboring states are collaborating in terms of securing the borders of the state, ensuring that the the criminals doesn't have like a way out of the states whenever they are being chased out. All these things would help to, ensure that these states are secure. Yeah, but at the end of the day, you have to get experts in that area, to give their advice on the security issues, following a proper diagnostics. But this is just what we can say on the top of our head. When we engage more with these states, we can see the initiatives they are taking to curb this insecurity, and we will report those initiatives in the next report that we are coming out with. The whole essence is, this report, let us see, we are looking for a way where we can educate people on what is happening in our country, help them to, come in, make informed decisions as to where to invest, which states to do business with, and we want to sell these states. It's not our intention to, degrade any state. No, we are looking for ways to promote all our states, because these states are becoming relevant by the day. Subsidy is gone, so the states have more money to spend, so people should hold them to account for some of these things.
Okay, let me ask you. I mean, we've looked at the states, we'll look at some of the issues, but in this same report, there is regional ranking by Phillips Consulting. And this regional ranking puts the Northwest in the first position. I think the Southwest comes second, and then you have the Northeast next, then you have the North Central, then you have the South-South, and then the least ranked region is the Southeast. Could you explain to us, how you arrived at this ranking, such that the Northwest and the Northeast seem to be doing much better than the South-South and the Southeast. And the Southwest is just somewhere in between there.
Okay, so for the regional ranking is just a aggregation of the performance of the different states. Yes, so we put together all the states, for instance, in the Southeast, compare them with all the states in the Northwest, which one has performed better. And from our assessment, the Northwest performed the best. One of the things, if you look at that page 24 of the report, one of the things that the Northwest have done pretty well is to manage the perception of the people, manage the expectation of the people living there. They are quite satisfied with the performance of their governors compared to other regions. Yes, you look at the Southeast, for example, you have this widespread insecurity around the sit at home, and all of those things. And people are, not really happy with what is happening there. So it also have affected how people feel. Beyond that, there are other indicators that you can see in the report that, speak, like ease of doing business. Yes, where is it easiest to do business in Nigeria? You go to a place like the Southwest, you see different organizations coming in, different companies coming in every day doing business in the Southwest. Compared to other regions, is it as easy as the Southwest to do business? So beyond the states, just like you have rightly pointed out, there's a regional kind of governors forum or a regional kind of platform where the governors meet. They can also look at this report and look at how they can enhance their performance as a region.
Okay. We're really very excited about this as we start to wrap things up. But in also going forward, I would like to see the next report. We're excited about it, and thank you so much for your work done on this. But also, if we can get, more data and larger sample size, on ground, that's another thing I think we should look at when we start to have those surveys, a larger sample size. So that we can have, more robust degrees of error, marginal error. But thank you so much for your time.